Have you ever felt the earth shift beneath your feet? That unsettling moment when everything you thought you knew is suddenly wrong? That's how I, Allison, felt that fateful night. The night I thought my world was about to expand with new life, instead, it shattered into a million painful pieces. My water broke, a sign that my daughter was ready to meet the world. Yet my husband, Dennis, wasn't by my side. A panicked call to him revealed he wasn't just late. He was in Hawaii, with his ex, Polly. A beautiful baby girl came into this world that day, a beacon of hope in a sea of confusion and hurt. My father was there for me, a rock in the storm, along with his loyal employee, Rufus, a silent and steady presence. But Dennis? He was still basking in the Hawaiian sun, seemingly oblivious to his own flesh and blood. How could a man value a past flame more than his own newborn? How could he abandon his responsibility? This was not the man I married. It couldn't be. The seed of revenge took root in my heart. Who am I? I'm Allison, a 37-year-old woman who dedicated years of her life to my father's construction business. Before love came knocking, I was set to follow in his footsteps. I was single, successful, and had my future mapped out, or so I thought. Everything changed the day we were contracted to do renovation work at a local hospital. There I met Dennis, a doctor whose gaze seemed to hold a warmth I'd never known before. We were drawn to each other, two career-driven individuals finding something special. He said he was captivated by my strength and capability. I, in turn, was intrigued by his quiet intensity. But was it love or merely an illusion? Was I just lonely? Our conversations soon delved deeper. I asked him about marriage. His response was a stark contrast to my own aspirations. He envisioned a traditional household, a wife dedicated to the home while he worked long hours. His view on marriage was a jarring reality check, a sign of an incompatibility that seemed insurmountable. I was destined to lead my father's company, not be a stay-at-home wife. Had I misunderstood the nature of our connection? Yet fate has a funny way of intervening, doesn't it? Just when I decided to let go, Dennis called. He confessed he couldn't stop thinking about me. And just like that, my heart overruled my mind and I fell headfirst into a romance that had felt so right. My father, sensing my heart's desire, encouraged me to follow my happiness, putting aside his business aspirations for my sake. And soon I was Mrs. Dennis, a housewife trying to make the best of her life. The reality of marriage, however, was not the fairy tale I had hoped for. Dennis was constantly away, leaving me alone in our spacious house. Loneliness began to creep into my soul. Then the financial discrepancies emerged, like a dark undercurrent eroding the foundation of our relationship. He started withdrawing large sums of money from our joint account, dismissing my concerns with vague explanations of work expenses. It was like he was keeping a secret, a shadow I couldn't quite grasp. My patience wore thin. When I confronted him about it, he offered me a brutal response: "Get a job yourself." His words, laced with bitterness, were like a physical blow. I rushed to the bathroom, nauseated not only by the reality of his betrayal, but also by my own inner turmoil. And then he accused me of faking illness, of trying to manipulate him. That night, I retreated to the guest room, seeking solace in solitude, my heart pounding with a sense of dread. What have I done? What has become of me? The next day, feeling unwell, I visited a hospital, seeking answers to my mystery illness. And there the truth was revealed: I was pregnant. A mix of apprehension and a sliver of hope filled me. Surely this changes everything. Surely Dennis will see his baby as a priority. Truly. I sent Dennis a message, expecting excitement, anticipation. Instead, I received silence. He returned home in the dead of the night, his first words not of joy but of suspicion, questioning the paternity of my child. His accusations were a cruel twist of the knife. It was there that I knew for certain I did not know this man I had married. Then came the shocking confession. the revelation of his childhood friend Polly and her financial woes. The money, the excuses, it all made sense now. He prioritized her over me, over our unborn child. This betrayal sparked a fire within me, a raw emotion that could not be contained. His callous retort, "I should have married Polly in the first place," was the final straw. I told him to leave, to get out of my life, and maybe, just maybe, to find some sort of happiness. The next morning, I tried to apologize, to mend the broken pieces of our relationship, but to no avail. Dennis was gone. The weight of my situation became crushing. It was then that I sought the counsel of my father and told him the entire harrowing truth. He was enraged, but I sought his comfort and guidance, and it was to him that I turned for help. His love and support gave me the strength to decide to keep my child no matter what. Dennis returned not out of love or remorse, but out of fear, forced back by my father's intimidating call. He had no understanding of his actions. Yet even then he continued his selfish ways, his absence and financial withdrawals continuing, despite my pregnancy. The day my daughter was to enter the world, I was alone and afraid. I could not allow Dennis's selfish behavior to ruin my child's birth. The contractions were intense, then the rush of fluid. My baby was ready. Dennis, however, was in Hawaii with Polly, living his life as though we never existed. How could he so easily abandon the life we were meant to build? I called my father, who rushed to my aid with Rufus. I birthed my daughter, Darla. And in that moment, I was not a wife betrayed, but a mother renewed. My daughter filled a space in my heart I didn't know was empty. But Dennis still wasn't there. He was in Hawaii. Still, I held my daughter, and the anger began to boil within my heart. Revenge. The thought took hold in my mind, and it wouldn't let go. As I recovered, the seed of revenge I planted began to bloom. I shared my plan with my father, a complex plan that involved my construction company, the only family I knew I could depend upon. While Dennis was on his vacation, I set the plan in motion. When Dennis returned, it wasn't a hero's welcome. His life had changed. His apartment had been demolished. His things were sent to his parents. When I called him to tell him this, his reaction was one of utter shock. He denied everything: the affair, his recklessness. He denied it all, even when faced with the evidence. Rufus, my father's manager, shockingly revealed that Polly was his ex-wife. A twist in the story, a new revelation that connected all the dots in this complicated story. They had even taken pictures and videos of Dennis and Polly's encounter. They couldn't deny what was obvious: they had been having an affair, and they had been discovered. I was able to confront them both. And in the end, Dennis discovered I was my father's daughter, the heir to the construction empire he had so readily dismissed. Polly was also taken by surprise. Dennis was nothing but a pawn in my scheme. He'd been used, manipulated by the woman who had taken so much from me. Dennis finally agreed to sign the divorce papers and pay compensation. He was completely defeated. All his lies had come to light, and now he would finally face the consequences. He tried to make it seem like money was nothing to him, but in the end he was forced to give in. And Polly was forced to do the same. Rufus finally got the payment that he was owed, and he was able to move on with his life. With the help of Rufus, the revenge had been successful. I thanked him for all his help. His presence had been a light in the dark, and his willingness to act on my behalf brought a degree of satisfaction to my situation. He, in turn, thanked me for letting him finally get closure with Polly, his ex-wife. We were a team, and it was the power of our teamwork that had brought us to this point. The hospital, once his place of employment, was now his place of expulsion. He lost his job because he took time off for my delivery and instead spent the time with his mistress. His life crumbled before his very eyes, and he had no one to blame but himself. His parents contacted me and told me the horrors of his new life, that he had been living off of Polly and being mistreated. Dennis called. desperate for a job, begging for a chance. I refused. There was nothing left between us. He had dug his own grave and now he would lay in it. He would be forced to live with the choices that he had made, and I would continue to live my life free of his lies. A news report showed that Dennis and Polly had been arrested for fraud. He had fallen so far that he would resort to criminal activity just to stay afloat. My choices had led to his downfall. Had I gone too far? It didn't matter. I was finally free of him, and my family was all the family I needed. I returned to work stronger than ever with my new family of employees. And although they suggested I pursue a relationship with Rufus, he was only my work partner. I was content. I was happy. My daughter, Darla, was the true source of my happiness. And with my father's loving care, she was growing into a beautiful and intelligent young lady. My father stepped away from his presidential duties to focus on Darla. They call him Grandpa Boss now. He has truly become a man devoted to his granddaughter. My world had changed and I had taken the reins of my life. This story wasn't about vengeance or bitterness, not really. It's about finding strength in the face of betrayal, about discovering your own power, and realizing that family in its truest form is the foundation upon which we build our lives.